The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Welcome back to the show, all Cherries fans, all Ipswich fans, and the rest of the Premier League. We do have a very, very special show for you today. Now, of course, Ipswich Town have won back-to-back promotions from League One all the way to the Premier League. Kieran McKenna has completely turned the club around after they were beaten up by Barrow in the FA Cup a few years back. And Ipswich are now looking like a side who could potentially stay up in the top flight. Fingers crossed for them. Honestly, it is great to have them back. Now, I do have a very, very special guest, but before I introduce him, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow, and it's free. It's free. It means the world to us. Now, my special guest is a comedian, an actor. He's been in movies such as Gladiator, The Mummy, Notting Hill, The World Is Not Enough, the British adaptation of Mean Machine alongside Vinnie Jones, The Infidel, written by David Baddiel, Cassanova. It is a pleasure to welcome on to Up the Cherries in all departments, Omid Djalili. Welcome to the show, Omid. How are you doing?
Craig Beasley, what a pleasure! What a podcast to come on in the shadow of all these amazing people like Harry Redknapp and Professor Brian Cox. It's a real honor to be here.
Thank you so much, and it's an honor for us to have you. I absolutely love your comedy, love your movies, and everything that you've done. So honestly, the pleasure is all mine here. What I wanted to start off with, Omid, let's discuss how your love for football began. What was your earliest memories of the beautiful game?
I don't have a memory, but it's interesting. There's a photograph of me, which my parents say was when they were showing the World Cup in 1966. I was a 10-month-old baby, and they were surprised that I was watching it. They weren't really into football. They just knew it was a big event. But I seemed to be really enamored with this event, and they were saying, "Oh, look, ball! He's following the ball." And I remember thinking, I don't remember thinking anything because I actually don't remember it. But apparently I had this annoyed look, like, "Stop it! I'm trying to watch the game. This feels like an important thing." So I was 10 months old, absolutely riveted to England versus Germany, and I sat there for 2 hours. I watched the extra time. I watched everything. And I would like to think that I just sat there going after Jeff Hurst, because that would never cross the line. I love to think that I said that as a baby. But it was, I think it started there. And then when I got to school, you play football in the playground. But in those days, you're lucky if you had a tennis ball. We used to kick an apple core about. We used to kick stones around. Back in the 1970s, around 1970, 71. It was just, I remember people kicking this thing around. And then I remember, because I was in Kensington, some kid who was older than me walked in with a Chelsea top, because Chelsea had won the FA Cup in 1970. And I remember thinking, what's that? And what is that top? And this kid says, "Chelsea, mate." And I said, "What's Chelsea?" And everyone started laughing, because I didn't even know. I didn't come from a football family. I didn't quite understand what it was. But I was very much taken by the badge. I was taken by the colours. And then I started playing football. And then I remember when I was too young, around 9 or 10, the teacher who was doing the primary school football team, he goes, "You could play. We could bring you in early to play for the school football team," because it was all kids who in what you would call year 6 now.
Yeah.
And I was in year 5. I was in the year below, but they brought me in below. They thought I was so good. So I started playing from a very young age, and then I started playing district football. Then I started playing for West London, and it was all, that's how it all started. And it all came, I suppose, that the idea of a professional career came crashing down when in those days you got a trial at Chelsea, where it's just, they bring these kids down, they've been sent down, you get bibs and you play. And I was up against this kid who was like 12, absolutely skinned me. I was a left back. And I found out later it was Stuart Barlow, who used to play for Everton. He absolutely and finished my dream of playing for Chelsea, because that was my local team at the time. And but I've always played since then. I went on, I played for, colleges. I played for my university in Ireland for 3 years. Then when I came to London, I played in Iranian league, which was very well organized with referees. And I still now, age 58, I still write down professional games, like competitive games. I played like 260 goals scored, 20. I scored 20 goals, and I wasn't a bad little player. And I'll just finish off this section about football. Was and all the wounds of my childhood were healed when I scored against RoboKeeper, which is a robotic keeper that Lionel Messi couldn't score against. And I did it with my first shot on the One Show in 2014. And then after that, I wound it down. I played football for another couple of years, and then unfortunately I had a hip replacement, which meant I had to really limit what I was doing. But that was my journey, was from age 10 months watching the World Cup all the way to, I would say, I stopped playing around 50, 51.
So you could have been a footballer rather than comedian and an actor?
I think, honestly, most people who I know who are successful, they always had some kind of grounding in team sports. Yeah. Rugby or cricket or football was the big thing. Most of my comedian friends, Ian Stone, David Baddiel, a lot of them all played football. Boothby Graffo also was on the books of Hull City. People you wouldn't think. They've all come from team sports, because to work in arts, you need to work with other people, and you have to have an awareness of other people, and you always work in teams. And I think that was a thing that really helped me. So whether I became a footballer or not, it was irrelevant. It was the whole process of working in a team, working on skills, running when you don't want to be running, pushing yourself. I always say that football is it's a symbol for life. Everything you see in football is you see in life. Teamwork, individual skill, decision making. These are all things you learn on the football field. And so most successful people I know had that kind of background.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you are an Ipswich Town fan. How do you begin supporting the club?
Well, okay, let's be really clear. I'm a Chelsea fan, but because I moved into the area, I believe in grassroots football. I believe in supporting your local team. So I moved into the area in November 2020, and I'd always had an affection for Ipswich Town. Most football fans in their 50s would be aware of Sir Alf Ramsey, and Sir Bobby Robson, who were Ipswich managers who went on to become England managers. And in fact, the first house we saw when they found out that I was moving there, they showed me the house where Bobby Robson and Alf Ramsey lived. I said, I'm not living here. Said, what a crap hole. It's just got a massive garden where he obviously would bring some of the team and discuss tactics, but the actual house wasn't great. But I was very happy to see it. And but I moved into the area, and I've been aware of Ipswich in the days of Paul Mariner, the days of Kevin Beattie, Russell Osman. I can name that whole team, Mick Mills. And actually the ones who are still alive are still in the area. I saw George Burley going for a walk just a couple of months ago. Alan Brazil, obviously from TalkSport, he still lives in the area, drives down to TalkSport every day from Suffolk. So there is something about this area, when people move into it, they don't really leave. So that team from the 70s and 80s, most of them are still around. So I was aware of that team, and they played really good football. That was the thing. They always pushed Liverpool with a big team in the late 70s. They always pushed Liverpool. They won the UEFA Cup in, I think, 1981, I believe it was. So there's a great legacy of football. So I started going. When they were League One, and they were terrible. I mean, they weren't good. The first 4 games, the first 3 games I went to, it finished 2-2. They played AFC Wimbledon, it was 2-2. They played Morecambe's 2-2. So the 4th game I showed up wearing a tutu. And those ballerinas tutus. Yes. And I don't think the Ipswich fans took the satirical nature of what I was saying. And the bloke I went with, he goes, Jesus, take it off. You can't show up on a football ground wearing a tutu. So, but they weren't very good. And being accustomed, being a Chelsea season ticket holder, I wasn't prepared for the kind of football I was watching. And the differences are, for example, a lot of people do back passes. You know, there'd be a back pass. I get up, I go back pass. And people look at me like, I said, what's going on? It's a back pass. He goes, no, a back pass is if it goes from under the knee. And players, it was going in off their bollocks, off their thighs, and they're giving it back, and the keeper was picking it up because they're used to it. They're used to that in League One. That doesn't really happen in the Premier League. And also, they never zip the ball into the player. Like in the Premier League, a footballer can be surrounded by the player, but they'll still zip the ball into him because he's got a great first touch. I'd see players, I said, just pass it about. And they wouldn't. They'd look and they'll go long, or they try and always get the ball in behind. So League One football was extremely difficult to watch. And it is a different game to the Premier League. So I saw those differences. But I did notice when Kieran McKenna came. And I always said this. I always said, when I moved to this area, I made a prediction straight away. I said, I bet you Ipswich in a couple of years will be in the Premier League. And it would be because I've moved into the area. And then Kieran McKenna came, back-to-back promotions, and now they're there. So it's the Omid Djalili effect. Nobody agrees with me. I say this in the newspapers. I've been telling everyone, no one gets it or agrees with me. They just say, oh, shut up, you bull twat. So I honestly believe Ipswich in the Premier League because of me, but that's obviously something that more people are saying it's because of Kieran McKenna. But I'm going to speak to Kieran McKenna and I'm going to say, can we at least go halves? Let's go halves on this responsibility.
I'm going to give you the credit for it, Omid. Honestly, not
go
a problem at all. One question I do want to ask, though, with regards to the 2-2, did it work? And the fourth game, how did it go?
It finished 2-2 as well. 4 games on the trot, 2-2.
Oh, so it did.
It was the most frustrating. Then the next game I saw them. They were League One. They played Newport in the League Cup, and they still lost to Newport at home, a team that was one division below them. So that's how bad Ipswich were. And interestingly enough, they weren't a bad team. Like that whole Ipswich legacy of passing the ball around, you can still see it's there. But now that Kieran McKenna has come, and McKenna you can't believe it, he was 35 when he came, and he just had been at Manchester United, coaching people like Cristiano Ronaldo. And I remember thinking, wow, the Ipswich hierarchy have seen something in this guy. And I think Cristiano Ronaldo said he's going to be a great manager in the future. I think it was under Cristiano's recommendation. And you can see it. I remember in the first 3 weeks, I was seeing these Twitter clips on X, on just like a 40-pass move, finishing with like Ipswich shooting just over the bar. I'm thinking, wow, he's really got them playing good football. And it just goes to show, actually, a manager can have a tremendous impact on a team. It takes a while, but his impact was almost immediate. And then we saw back-to-back promotions. So you have to say Kieran McKenna is one of those young managers, and he really knows his football, and he's obviously somehow transmuted those messages to the players, and they're playing Premier League football now.
Just going back to your early days, and of course growing up in Kensington, who were your favourite players?
Oh well, I mean, when you're watching football from a young age in the 1970s, you have to understand a lot of people my age, because the football we watched midweek was the European Cup Winners' Cup. It was usually Liverpool or Manchester United, or it was the Nottingham Forest even. So I remember being really obsessed with John Robertson, who was the right-footed left winger for Nottingham Forest. In fact, he's the guy who put the cross in for Trevor Francis to score against Malmo in the final of 1979. He's the guy who scored against Hamburg at the I think it was at the Bernabeu. And he was just a fantastic, one of those really underrated players, played for Scotland. And then I think he disgraced himself. I think there was some kind of drugs thing. I don't know if you remember that, Craig, but he had a terrible run, and he was kind of banned from a World Cup. And then we never really saw much of him again. But he was definitely the player that I was focusing, because I was both footed. So I started off as a left back, but then I used to watch him a lot. And another player who used to play for Everton called Ronnie Goodlass, who
Yeah.
always used to hold his sleeves with his hands. So for some reason, he used to run. And Gordon Hill, who played for Manchester United, it was all left wingers I particularly really like. And then later on, it was Peter Barnes, John Barnes. I loved all these tricky left wingers. And I never forget John Barnes scoring a cracking goal. Absolutely amazing goal in 1984 at the Maracanã, where he took on 6 players. It was the first time with England playing in a white kit with red socks, and they went to the Maracanã, and they hadn't qualified for the World Cup. So they were just touring South America. And then England beat Brazil 2-0 at the Maracanã with, I believe, a crowd of 150,000. It held 200,000. 150,000 saw that. And they were all declaring John Barnes as a Brazilian. If you look it up on YouTube, it's one of the greatest England goals ever scored. We don't talk about it enough. But he just gets the ball and says, Brazilians, I'll show you how it's done. And he just runs through the whole defense and beats 6 players and scores. So I would say my early days were always looking at the left wingers.
He's a great rapper as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a great rapper. And you know what? I've got to say something. This is the thing. You forget when you meet celebrities, people behave weirdly. And I met him at there was a industry football 6-a-side tournament called Soccer 6, which was a music industry thing. But every team had an ex-pro, and I remember seeing John Barnes in 2000 or 2001. He'd just been sacked as a manager at Celtic, and I remember thinking, "Oh God, that's John Barnes." And I was a nobody. I was just in the comedians team, and I told the comics. I think I was with Lee Mack. He goes, "Look, there's John Barnes. Why don't you go and talk to him?" I said, "I'll go and talk to him." He goes, "What are you going to say?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just so excited to meet him." So I went up to him. I said, "Hey, John. My name's Omid. You don't know me. I'm a huge fan." He goes, "Oh, thank you." He goes, "I think you're one of the best." That goal at Maracanã. I goes, "Yeah, thank you, thank you." I said, "You're a really shit manager, though, aren't you?" And he went, "Excuse me?" Said, "Not exactly good. You just got sacked at Celtic." He goes, "And?" I said, "Well, I'm just saying, stay in your lane." And he went, "I'm a retired footballer." I said, "Yeah, but I wouldn't go into management. That's not really your thing." He went, "Okay." I said, Just saying, you're a great rapper. Maybe go into music." He went, "Okay." I said, "Yeah. Anyway, lovely to meet you. Take care." He went, "Thanks." And I remember, and Lee Mack had buggered off. Lee Mack was so embarrassed, he just walked off. He goes, "What were you saying? What were you saying?" That I said, "I don't know. What was I saying? I don't know what I was saying." So if John Barnes is watching, please forgive me. I've met him since, and he doesn't remember that. So we were very pally and matey with each other. But that's what happens when you meet your heroes. You just behave in a really strange way, and I'm no different.
Well, he was proved right in the end, wasn't he? I think, that song, is timeless, isn't it? Whereas the management career kind of fell flat on its face, didn't it?
Well, okay, but that's the whole thing. You should be focusing on people's good qualities rather than honing in on the one failure he had. So funny.
Well, we'll come back to Ipswich in a moment, but let's talk about your career. What were your early years like growing up in Chelsea, like at school?
Well, that's a very good question, because I was born and raised just off High Street, Kensington, and Kensington was a real Kensington High Street was. It's not exactly West End, but because there was a Royal Garden Hotel, you always had famous celebrities staying there. I remember seeing the Brazil team of 1981, who came and beat England 1-0. They were training in Hyde Park. I remember going to Hyde Park. Someone said, "Brazil team they're doing warm-ups in Hyde Park." I went along and watched them, and they came and they beat. I think Zico scored. Eder. Remember that player, Eder? He did this amazing banana shot. Ray Clements just stood there, and it just went. The ball literally bent. I wouldn't say 45 degrees, but like I really because I remember going to the game, and Eder took a free kick, and Clements didn't move. And I'm thinking, he didn't move, and it hit the crossbar. Then we rushed home and watched the highlights, and the ball literally bends like that. I've never seen football like that. So seeing celebrities close by, I remember bumping into Dustin Hoffman, thinking, "Oh, he's a bit short." You see Al Pacino. I saw Barbra Streisand. I remember seeing Prince Charles, our king. He was in a convertible car stuck in traffic. I was on a bicycle, and I could just hear crowds chanting. And he was in a convertible American car. He must have been around 30, 31 with 3 MI6 officers looking around in a convertible. And the whole crowd were going, "One Charlie Windsor, There's only one Charlie Windsor. And he was like, yeah, thank you, it's lovely. Thank you. He was lapping it all up. So when you see these celebrities close by, you kind of think that the world of showbiz is touchable. It's not a. So I was never really scared. And of course, the first school I went to Holland Park School, and the first school play I did, it was during the time there was a show on TV, a sketch show called Not the 9 O'Clock News, with Rowan Atkinson, Griff Rhys-Jones, Mel Smith, and Pamela Stevenson, who then went on to marry Billy Connolly. These people were on television doing amazing sketches when you wouldn't have the pause button. You just watch a sketch when you're a kid, and you'd be doing those sketches in the playground the next day. So when I was 15, I couldn't believe I did a school play where the writer knew Mel Smith from not 9 O'Clock News, and obviously said, "Why don't you come down? The kids love you. Come and watch." So Mel Smith watched me do a play at Holland Park School when I was 15 years old, and he was awkwardly asked to come backstage. So he came backstage, and no one really talked to him. And I went up to him. I said, "Oh, you're Mel Smith." And in those days, he was like 27, 28. He's only like 13 years older than you. So they're quite young, socially awkward people in their late 20s. And so I felt embarrassed for him. I was embarrassed for him. So I went to make conversation with him, and he said, "You're really funny." I said, "Oh, thank you." He goes, "You should think about it." And I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You should think about a career in comedy. You're naturally very funny." I just hugged him. I said, "You're just my hero." And amazingly, 15 years later, 14 years later, when I was 29, the first agency that picked me up was Talkback, which is run by Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones. And I said, "You encouraged me when I was a kid." He goes, "When?" I said, "Holland Park School, 1981. He goes, "Oh my God, were you that goofy kid who like dropped his pants every 5 minutes?" Because I kept dropping my pants. I kept making my trousers fall down. He goes, "I remember you." Oh my goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "Oh my God." So what I'm trying to say, Craig, is in those days, if you happened lucky enough to be in an area where you saw celebrities and they would come in and impact your life, it was a huge deal. And I never really, I took that for granted a little bit. So I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful that I was raised in an area where that fear of getting up on stage was never there.
You did, though, struggle a little bit at school, and you failed your A levels, I understand, 6 times, but you still managed to get into university.
Yes,
how you did it.
Well, Craig, this is a very amazing. I've actually counted. It was 6 different A levels taken 13 times. I did 49 papers, and I got the final grades was a C and 3 E's was the final after 13 retakes, which is not enough to get you into university. I mean, literally, I was so deluded. I'd do like an A level a paper because that was brilliant. I wonder, an A. Do you know what? I messed up that paper. It might be a B. Then you get your result and it's unclassified. I think, what the hell? How can I think I got an A or a B? And it's unclassified. So obviously, somewhere along the line, I had some very bad teaching. But because I was determined, and in those days, you had what you call the UCAS forms or the UCA forms, we call them.
Yeah.
And in those days, you just had to write out by hand. It wasn't all computerized. You had to write out by hand what your results were. I thought, I'll just lie. I'll put in B, C, D, E. That might get me in through the clearing system somewhere. Yeah. And University of Ulster called me in for an interview. Ulster was like in cold rain. I've got to fly to Belfast and drive up there. I thought I'll go along, and they said, "Bring your certificates." I'm not going to take any stuff. So I went along and said, had my interview. He goes, "It's very good. Let's go out." He goes, "Do you have your certificates?" I said, "No." He goes, "That's no problem. The computer printout will be out on the outside. We've got everyone's printout." I thought, "Oh God, I'm done for here." And he went there, and the printout said Omid Djalili B, C, D, E. So either somebody had messed up and put it into the computer, or they're so desperate at that university because it was Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and no one wants to go there. They must have thought this twat's lying. Let's just let him in. He's got a C, he got an E. That'll be enough. Just let him in. And I think that was in my head. It was like a miracle from God. But actually, I think it was just them desperate. We'll take him. He's lying. So I went there, and I think that's how it worked. But I think I think the lesson here is, you know, you just have to persevere. I think if you persevere, and if it's something you really want, you will get there. And I always wanted a university education, and I think it was unfair. And actually, I tell you what, Craig, when I finished, and in those days they used to put your results, the final degree, it's on a big piece of paper. There were 168 people on my course, and they put the results on a board, another computer printout. And I started at the bottom, and I didn't see myself. They said, I said, I'm not on this. They goes, Omid, you're at the top. I was eighth out of 168. So it showed that I did have academic ability. I just had some bad teaching. So at the end of the day, if you persevere and if you believe in yourself, you will get somewhere.
Definitely. I like that. I do like that. What was the time like in Northern Ireland? Because, of course, you mentioned there the troubles and what it was like. But how did you feel over in Northern Ireland?
It was a tough time. I remember thinking, isn't there like a war going on? It goes, nah, it'll be all right. It's a bit like Beirut. You know about Beirut, but when you go there, it's like Paris. It's like they think, oh, okay, fine, go along. And then I go to the university, didn't see anything. There were a couple of soldiers, military people with machine guns. I thought, oh, hang on, I've got to go past this check. I've got to go past a checkpoint. And the first thing I said, where are the toilets? I went to the toilet. I sat down on the toilet just to calm down. And I saw a British flag with excrement over it, and someone had smeared their own shit over a British flag. Hello, because I wasn't really politically savvy. I didn't really know what the problems were. I just knew they hated the English, and I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be interesting, and it was. But the Northern Irish people, you know, when you live under suffering, the people are just brilliant, and they really were always took the piss out of me. They goes, hey, look at you with your jacket. Hey, look at you! You think you're a big man, and because I drove it like a red Renault 5, I looked like a kind of Hooray Henry, and they always took the piss out of me. But it was always loving. And actually, the first time I knew I was funny was, I can tell you, it was the end of the football season in 1988, and they gave me what's called Turkey of the Year, which is like the worst player, but it's really like Personality of the Year. And you've got to give a 5-minute speech. They told me, because you're going to be Turkey of the Year and you've got to give a speech, because they just thought I was funny and maybe it'd be a good way to round up. So I gave a 5-minute comedy speech, and there's pictures of it, of whatever I said. There's you know, Father Murphy with his head in his hands like that. There's a great picture. I don't know what I said that was inappropriate, that they were all pissing themselves laughing. And that was when they said, you should become a comedian. And that I really thank them for that, because they were all so funny. All these people all the football team I was with, they were funny. There was always such a laugh. And I'm very grateful to Northern Ireland for giving me that appreciation of dark humor and actually using humor to cope with difficult situations. These are people who'd lost family members, who'd been killed and blown up by the Brits, by the IRA. It was a really tough time, but they all dealt with it with humor. And that was such a big part of my journey, I would say. So yeah, it was tough, but it just gave me the grounding for the stuff I'm doing now.
After university, I understand you went to Czechoslovakia for 4 years to work on acting. How did you find that? And can you tell us a little bit more about that period?
Yeah, it was a time. I was actually in Berlin in 1989. Do you remember when Berlin Wall came down and at the Brandenburg Gate?
Yes.
Everyone said, let's all go to Brandenburg. I'm in my 20s, and I thought, I've got to go. And it was incredible. There were thousands of people there, people coming in from East Germany. Remember, the Eastern Bloc was such that we never saw these people. We only saw them at the Olympics, and they were all on steroids. And you always had this dark feeling that, oh God, all the Russians, the East Germans, and they won all the medals. But you just didn't know anything about them. So it was a big deal. And then suddenly David Hasselhoff pops up and he's singing on top of the Brandenburg Gate. What the hell is this? And he was famous from the show Knight Rider. And I'm thinking, what the hell is he? Is he a singer? Why is he singing? And he was like singing these songs and people were going bananas. And it was one of the greatest nights of my life. And I remember thinking, wow, I want more of this. And the Eastern Bloc was breaking down. So all those countries, you know, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Poland, Bulgaria, all these countries, Albania, were opening up. And I really wanted a piece of it. So I went out there to have a look. I went out there for a couple of weeks and they said, look, we need English teachers. I met some artists that said, "Oh, if you come, we can start up a theatre company." I remember thinking, "I want to be here. This is fantastic." So I went there, formed a theatre company, and was teaching English and was doing theatre at night with a very successful company that then came to the Edinburgh Festival, and we won awards. So that was, I would say, a brilliant time in my life in my 20s, where it was artistically challenging and exciting. But whatever we did in Czechoslovakia, when we brought it to the West, it hit, and it hit big, and we won awards. And that's how my career started. So I'm very, very thankful to the people of Czechoslovakia and Slovakia, especially because the country split in 1993. Rozumím po slovensky, veľmi dobre. So I speak Slovak as well now, and it was a wonderful. And people are always surprised by that. But it was 4.5 years. It was some of the best years of my life.
I didn't know that you spoke Slovak at all.
Yeah,
That's
it's crazy,
really
isn't it?
shocked. Yeah, that's really, really shocked me. I was not aware. But you come back to the UK, and in 1995, you entered the Edinburgh Fringe Festival to great success, along with the Big Big Talent Show, which I understand was hosted by Jonathan Ross at the time, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I did a show at the Edinburgh after the success of the theatre. I thought, well, unfortunately, my mother passed away, and I had to move back and look after my dad. So my wife actually suggested, why don't you do stand-up comedy? And we did a show, and it was based on what I looked like. It was like I looked like a short, fat kebab shop owner's son, but inside me there's a tall, thin, high cheekboned English ponce screaming to get out. So that was the show. Short, fat. I'm a short, fat kebab shop owner's son. And someone saw me at the Edinburgh Festival, and there was a show called The Last Resort, which had been big in the late 80s and early 90s, which hosted by Jonathan Ross. It was kind of what you would watch on Channel 4. You watch Cheers with Ted Danson, then you watch The Last Resort, then you go out for a night in London. And I remember thinking, well, any show by Jonathan Ross, if he's asked me to do stand-up, I'll do it. But I had no idea it was a talent show. And I had an agent at the time. He goes, "Omid, do you know this is a talent show?" I said, "No, it's not. It's the Jonathan Ross show." He goes, "Yeah, it's Jonathan Ross hosting a talent show. Do you really want to be doing a talent show with talent show people?" Oh, that's different. But then I had no money, and they were paying me like 1,500 quid to do the pilot. So I did the pilot, and then they paid me another 2,000 quid. So when you got no money and they've offered you 3,500 quid, I just did it, and it was a talent show. And actually, it was Paul Zerdin won overall. You know, Paul Zerdin, who's got all these puppets. But it was me and Gina Yashere in the comedy category. So I won. I won the best comic in 1996, but it had zero impact on my career, because the next year I went up to Edinburgh Festival and was performing to 6 and 7 people. So actually, there was no correlation between that show and then the Edinburgh Festival. These are different lanes. They're different, I suppose, audiences. So it was a kind of but I'm glad I chose the Edinburgh Festival route, because that is a different. I could have gone down the kind of mainstream, doing working man's clubs and doing that whole thing. But actually, the Edinburgh Festival was a place where you're an artist, and by following that particular route, by 2002, I was nominated for the Perrier Award, which is like the Oscars of comedy. So actually, it was a very specific decision I had to make: either go into the mainstream and do TV shows and all that kind of stuff, but actually, or sticking to your comedy guns and doing what you really wanted to do. And it was the Edinburgh Festival and all that it entailed, being with other artists, growing as a stand-up comedian. That was the path I took.
A lot of your comedy sketches, of course, focus on your Iranian roots. Were you ever worried about, when you started out, what the reception would be?
Yeah, I think so, because when I started out, it's really interesting, Craig, because I never really performed with any women. And years later, I thought, why is that? And Joe Brown said to me, because we were the diversity. It was always three blokes and a diverse act, like a speciality act, someone who played the guitar, or 3 blokes and a woman, or it was 3 blokes and an ethnic bloke, like you, a black guy, or you. And I thought, wow. So you never really performed with women. So I was the diversity. And it was very important to me as an Iranian to do that, to actually mix it with the comedy big guns and kind of represent. And it went well for a while, but then around 2005, when I broke away from that and just started doing comedy as a comedian and not really focusing on my ethnicity, that's when I started getting terrible reviews. And I don't think that I watched back some of the. I don't think the comedy was bad. It was just people weren't ready for it. It's like the press was saying, "This is your lane. You're the ethnic guy. That's what you do." And I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I have a viewpoint. I'm British, really.
Yeah.
And so what's the difference between me and Jack D? Yeah, Jack D's established and all that stuff, but it wasn't Jack D just, he could talk about anything. And the thing is, they didn't really want me to. They wanted me to talk about ethnic things, and so that took a while to break away from that. So the 2002 show, which I was done, which is called Behind Enemy Lines, it was all about 9/11 and trying to explain what was going on and trying to make sense of that event, and through comedy. And that's where I got the awards, and then the deal to work with Whoopi Goldberg in America. But it was a bit of a breakaway to just stand on my own 2 feet as a stand-up comedian, and that was something I had to fight against perception. And actually, a lot of what you have to say, sorry to say this, Craig, but it's racism. It's kind of, what's the word? It's kind of bias. It's like a conscious bias against you, which is based on your race. And rather than call racism, I just fought through it. I just worked through it, and then I suppose it's taken a while for people just to see me as a comic in my own right. And that took a while. So at the beginning, it was quite difficult, and it's been a journey. But I'm really glad to see that even though Whoopi Goldberg actually put it in a very good context. She said, "You are the Richard Pryor for brown people." I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "No, I'm not comparing you to Richard Pryor, but Richard Pryor was the first of the black people doing it. And what he did first, he did stuff about black people to a white, middle America or audience. And then as he got older, he became more authentic and did the stuff that he wanted to do." Because you're on that trajectory and you have to promise me never to stop doing stand-up, which is what happened. And then I suppose once you do that, then you inspire lots of people. So I'm so happy that when I see a legacy, I feel I'm too young to even talk about a legacy, but when you look at the comics I see who all say, "Wow, you were the first." And I wasn't even like Ramesh Ranganathan calls me the OG, Guz Khan, all these people, they're all like Paul Chowdhury, people who are really funny. I mean, they say can you be friends with people whose act you don't like? Well, I'll tell you what, I can be friends with them and I like their acts. And if I had any part to play in that being the first, then I'm really proud of it. So in a sense, it's very difficult to be the first. That's the thing. And I wasn't even aware of that at the time. That's the thing, Craig. I wasn't really aware of it. I just did it. And you're kind of unconscious. When you're in your 30s, you just behave unconsciously, just do it. You don't really think of anything. But now in my 50s, I look back and I think, wow, I was the first and I had challenges, but I worked through them all. And it's been really worthwhile.
After 9/11, as you mentioned there, it was a little bit of a difficult time, wasn't it? And after watching the Kate Garraway show that you did, the Life Story show, I understand that your bookings kind of just disappeared overnight.
Yeah.
But by facing what had happened head on, and adding that comedy element to it as well, that's where, of course, Whoopi Goldberg, of course, noticed you, and it really built from there, didn't it?
Yeah, I've always believed in the transformative power of comedy, actually, and comedy to heal. And I was effectively cancelled before the days of cancel culture. When we say cancelled, I was on a sitcom. They took me off it. They all my gigs were gone, and my manager Nigel goes, "No one wants you." And I said, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Because they associate you with terrorism and they associate you with suicide bombing." So I remember thinking, "Wow, that's really unfair." But there's I had one chance, which was at the Bloomsbury Theatre. I'd won the Time Out. That's the thing. I was Time Out Comedy Award winner. I never really even got to. I never got to enjoy that because 9/11 happened soon after. So being the Time Out Comedy Award winner, they put you up at the Bloomsbury, and I fought back. I actually sat down and wrote material. I had 17 days to come up with stuff because it was the 28th of September 2001, and it was Brian Logan, a comedy reviewer from The Guardian, who saved my career with its amazing review, which made me kind of overnight a cultural relevance. Is like, we need to listen to this guy to start healing. So It was difficult, but through the encouragement of, I would say, other comedians as well. There were a lot of comedians that were backing me up. I was able to fight back with comedy, and I think that's what it taught me, that the power of comedy is very, it's really strong. If you say the right joke at the right time, it can really change things. And I remember Prince Charles said that to me when I did his 70th birthday party. I was told not to do anything political, but I did this Brexit routine that we made our decision. It was a routine that went down so well. And in the lineup, he said, that was very good. I said, well, they might cut that out. He goes, cut what out? I said, the Brexit routine. He goes, no, that's the first thing we're keeping because it's my birthday party, my rules, that's going in. And ITV had to keep it in, and it went viral. So it was a really important thing to just calm the situation down. I know that we're in a very difficult spot right now when everyone's talking about, riots, and Elon Musk is saying civil war is an inevitability. That's going to help. It's so stupid. It's like that's going to help. But actually, Prince Charles said that routine helped calm things down because both sides for a second stopped and thought, if you focus on our Britishness, we've made our decision when we haven't really thought about it, but it's the British stubbornness, because that is the kind of thing that everybody can get behind and see. And I think even Brexiteers are a brilliant routine. I'm so good. And, Remainers saying brilliant routine. That's the first time I remember both sides were really complimenting me on a comedy routine. So I think that's the way I kind of navigated out my way of a very difficult situation after being effectively cancelled in 2001. So yeah, I think that was a huge lesson for me, and it's something I'm very aware of now, which is why it's a real responsibility to know that words and ideas and comedy have a great power in society.
Most definitely. Well, King Charles, as you mentioned there, he rates you as one of his favourite comedians. So you've played the Royal Variety Show several times and have also met the late Queen on a number of occasions. How enjoyable is it playing for the royal family? Because I can imagine it's a lot of pressure.
Well, it's not so much even the pressure of performing for them, but these events, because the royal family are so there was a time they weren't popular, but I think that around the times when we were doing shows with royalty in attendance, it was always when they were popular. So millions of people are watching this. It's not just the pressure of, off with his head, or, you've offended someone. There's millions of people watching it. So I suppose you have to be really prepared. I always believe in this. It's a boxing analogy, which is, train hard, fight easy. And actually, some boxing people have said to me, "No fight is easy. Don't say that." But you'll find that if you really train harder than your opponent, then the actual fight will be easier. So whenever I've had a royal engagement to perform, like Prince Charles's 70th birthday or his 60th birthday, you just train it. You go and you think of a set and you run it by people, and you go and take it to comedy. I try to be as prepared as possible. And I think that's the thing. I've just shot a sitcom, and it's with my kids. Actually, my kids, we've got this production company because they're artists in their own right. And I just said, we have to use this train hard, fight easy. So actually, with the writing process, the directing and everything, we work really hard. So actually shooting it was very easy, and editing it was very easy. So that's something I really believe in. So in answer to your question, it's all about preparation. And I think if you care enough, then you'll put in the preparation, and usually it goes well. But sometimes I have prepared and it's gone very badly as well. So in stand-up comedy, that's the whole thing. You can never really, nothing is guaranteed. A lot of it is down to fate and chance and a bit of luck. So I've had some, and it's not like as if it's all been great. I've had some terrible nights. I've been cancelled. I've been, I've had people walk out. I've had people like say, "We ain't paying you." That's terrible. I remember once I did a gig in, I think it was Bath, and it went really badly. And I was supposed to get 140 quid. And he used to go to the back office, and the guy goes, "I'm going to write you a check now, but you really think you deserve 140 quid? I went, "No." He goes, "What do you think you deserve?" I said, "Nothing really. I should just go home." He goes, "I'll pay for your petrol, but you got to be better next time." I said, "Okay, fine." He cut me a check for 40 quid. And I was thankful. I thought I got away with it. So it's not easy. It's not easy, and nothing is guaranteed. But to prepare, you give yourself a chance.
Apart from your comedy, though, you've also done quite a few serious parts on TV. So the likes of The Bill, the Ruth Rendell Mysteries, and also Cleopatra. How did you find going from your unique comedy style to some of the more serious roles?
Yeah, I think, look, at the end of the day, they're all small parts. They weren't really big parts. They weren't really. I mean, actually, interestingly enough, I remember doing The Bill. I played a Turkish part, and we were shooting it. There was one scene we were shooting in a cafe, and there was a young bloke there whose mum owned the cafe, and it was the young bloke, and it was Tamer Hassan. I don't know if you know Tamer Hassan.
Yes, yeah, Tamer Hassan.
It was Tamer Hassan's mum's cafe. And he was like telling me, going, I'm a boxer, I want to get into it. And have you got any tips? And I really look up to you. I said, how'd you look up to me? He goes, no, you're here doing it. This is like 1997, before I did The Mummy. He goes, yeah, but you're here doing it. You're one of us. I said, I'm Iranian. He goes, because I'm Turkish, but with the same thing, really. I said, okay, fine. And it was that particular meeting with a young Tamer Hassan that made me think, actually, this is really important. I remember him watching me like a hawk, and I had to be. And I will tell him it's my accent. I goes, your accent's perfect. He goes, here's a bit of Turkish you can say. So he gave me a bit of Turkish. And I remember thinking, this means a lot to people, you know, when they watch something, they want you to represent. So that meeting with Tamer as a young Tamer, Tamer's a couple of years younger than me, but he was really looked up to me. I remember thinking, I'm a nobody, but there's this young kid and his mum owns this cafe. I've got to be good for him. So that was where you realize. And also then when I did The Mummy, the first Mummy film, I remember thinking, God, the script is bad. God, the script, they can't write for Middle Eastern people. This is really two-dimensional. It's really awful. So the director rang me up. I lived in Hounslow at the time. He rang me from LA. He goes, hey, Ahmed, this is Stephen Summers. Just want to say, you're probably horrified by the lines you've got to say, but I just want to say you improvise. 9 times out of 10 will say, that's not good, but just keep throwing stuff at me, and if we use it, we'll put it in the film and I'll get the credit anyway. But just have a thick skin, just throw stuff at me and we'll put it in the movie. So majority of that movie was improvised, because I mean, it was like a one-dimensional character, which I kind of fought to make it two-dimensional. They couldn't write three-dimensional rounded characters for Middle Eastern people, but I always took that responsibility seriously. So because I knew that millions of people are going to see this, and you have to represent. I'm not Egyptian, but I've got to do it. So actually, when I did it, a lot of Middle Easterners thought I was actually Arabic, and I spoke some Arabic. So I took time. That's the thing. I took time to really work on the character, and it was very different to doing stand-up comedy. And I remember being with Rachel Wise, and I was like, there was a Brendan's hanging scene. I was telling people what to do and where to go, and they like me. I said, you tell him Yemshif Halu, and I said, yeah, Hamad, we don't. No, of course we don't let him go. I was like directing things, and Rachel Wise said to me, "Who the hell are you?" I said, "I'll tell you who I am. I'm a stand-up comedian. I got 40 quid at the Orangi Boom Boom before I came here. I'm somebody." I really thought being a comic on the London circuit was really important. I got 40 quid at the Orangi Boom Boom. That's who I am, love. He just laughed. I can't believe you're even saying that. But that's what gave me the confidence. It gave me, because you could get up in front of like 40 people at a really crap club at the back of King's Cross. And it made you think that, of course, I can handle a Hollywood movie. It's so deluded. It's so beautiful, but it's so true.
It wasn't the only movie that you did. You did Gladiator as well. The World Is Not Enough. Lots of Hollywood movies. And one also movie that I did want to mention was Mean Machine, the British adaptation of Mean Machine, where you played one of the inmates, Raj. That movie, you know, was that movie as fun as it appeared, performing next to Vinnie Jones? No,
it really was. And you had the Crazy Gang who played the Screws. If you look at, Jim Stanhope was in goal. In fact, the only Wimbledon Crazy Gang that was not in that team was on our team, was Vinnie Jones. Terry Gibson was there, and they were like just crazy people. Like you're talking to someone, then Vinnie walks past you, pushes you, and you got Terry Gibson. He's like on his knees, so you trip over him. I think, how old are you guys? 12? They were like, yeah, we got you. I said, you guys, the mental age of 12, 13. This is ridiculous. You're not serious people at all, but it was a real laugh, actually. And they really wanted to make sure the football was right. Like saying, lads, there's not been many good football. We've got to make sure the football's right. Got Wally Downs Wally Downs, who was the Wimbledon coach at the time, because now you've got to make sure the football's all right. So all the football you see was actually quite good, and we worked hard on it. And I was just disappointed that my character was supposed to score. He keeps trying to do it overhead kick, and in the script, my character scores the first goal with an overhead kick, and then Vinny goes, "No, I want to score the first goal." I said, "Vin, I've been practicing an overhead kick. I've got no arse left. I've been jumping up, landing on the ground." You can, no, I'm going to score. And then the director said, "I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put the cross in, and whoever scores first, that's what goes in the movie." So he obviously had a word with the left back who was putting in crosses. It was always going over my head. I'd never had a chance. In fact, what's shown is a cross comes over, and I just collapse on the floor, and then Vinny volleys it in. So not only did I not do an overhead kick, if you look at that before Vinny volleys it in, I just collapse in a heap for no reason whatsoever. It's one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, and it's caught on celluloid. But what could have been was me scoring an overhead kick. And I tell you what, Craig, I practiced it so much. As they put in balls, I got to for me, I had to get to 6 out of 10, where I not just connect but score. So I'd have to go away for overhead kick practice, and I did that. On my last session, they put in 10 balls, and I scored, and 3 or 4 of them were absolute belters. So I'm actually still quite bitter about it, but I can look back and laugh because you've just said it was a fun football film. So I'm really happy to be part of it.
Oh, definitely. You also starred in Pirates of the Caribbean, World's End, Sex and the City 2, and many others. But you also took a starring role in David Baddiel's movie The Infidel, which was incredibly successful. What was it like to work with David, and how happy were you with the movie's acclaim?
Yeah, David's hilarious because to be honest, I didn't really rate him as a writer at the beginning. He said to me, I'd worked with his partner, Morwenna Banks.
Yeah.
I played her boyfriend and husband in 2 films. So she had said, you've really got to meet David. David really likes you, thinks you're really funny, and let's meet. And we went to the Sex and the City. Was it the Sex and the City? No, it wasn't that. We went to that later. We went to the Alien Autopsy premiere, with Anton Deck, because I was in that, and me and Morwenna were partners in that, and that was 2005. It was 2006, and then he said, "Do you know what? I'm writing a film, and you're perfect for it. It's called it wasn't called The Infidel, because it's just about a Muslim who finds out he's a Jew." And I said, "Yeah, well, send me the script." And about a year later, he sent this script, and it was in my inbox, in my email inbox, and I thought, "Oh, I'll look at that later." Yeah. And 2 weeks later, he goes, "Have you read my script?" I said, "No." He goes, "When are you going to read it?" I said, "Yeah, this week." And another week went past. Then he sent me this message with all these expletives. He goes, "Do you know what? I've written this effing movie for you. I've done this. I've worked you can't even effing bloody read it. You know what? You can F off." Man. I said, "Well, I'll read it." He really had a go at me. And I read it. I thought, "Dave, this is brilliant." Well, he goes, now you say it's brilliant. Do you know what? I'll give it someone else." I said, no, I'll do it. And then we became producers together, and we produced it and we put it together. And it was a really good movie. But I'm a little bit of regret because the actual original ending he wrote was so good, but we didn't have the money to shoot the ending. The ending was a siege, and it was really an incredible ending. So I'll give him this. He's a great writer, and was really fun to work with. And we became really good friends, actually. And we're very proud of that movie. And the end of that was we met in 2006. And then by 2010, we took the movie to the Tribeca Film Festival, and the film was bought by who? Robert De Niro. De Niro bought the movie, and he distributed it across America. And that was a great way to finish that particular project. And it's still there. I still get the odd tweet. Every 6 months, someone says, "Oh, just seen The Infidel. What a great film." So, yeah, it was a really good experience, and we always laugh about it that it took me 3 weeks to read his bloody script because I didn't rate him as a writer.
You did win in 2005 the Best Supporting Actor award for your portrayal of Lupo in Cassanova, starring alongside the late Heath Ledger. How much of an honour was it to win that award?
I think people, when you say an award, you make it sound like it's an Academy Award. It wasn't. It was the Hungarian Film Association. You get these awards. People don't realize that every country has their own award system. And actually, I was very lucky also in That was actually 2006. The Hungarians felt that I had the best supporting actor, only because they had some inside track that the reason I was given the role, but there was nothing on the page. What happens, like they've heard about me from The Mummy, like there was nothing on the page, but he just made up this role. So it was a role that the Disney producer said, well, here's a bloke. There's a role of Casanova's valet. Let's find this bloke. He can do something. So they knew that there was nothing on the page. And then what I brought to it, they gave it a best supporting actor. And also I won the best actor at the Italian film, at the Turin Film Festival, which is the Italian Film Academy. So apart from the BAFTAs and the Academy Awards, the Oscars, there are these quite prestigious European awards. So it was very nice to receive it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they fly you out, you have a dinner, and you carouse. You come back the next day with some kind of trophy, and it feels, it's a bit of fun. But I never take these awards too seriously. In fact, I don't take any awards seriously, especially in stand-up comedy, because the actual the reward is actually doing it. So if you do it and you make a crowd of people laugh, and then some people think you're really funny and they give you an award, it doesn't mean anything to me. Even if they were to give me like an Oscar, I also know Oscars. It's not about the best person. It's about will that particular film company get behind you and do a campaign. So people who win those things aren't always the best. So those awards don't really mean much to me. But if you're asking me, it was a great night, great meal, and it was some great memories that night. But that's about it. But it's nice to be recognised.
Yeah, definitely. One thing and what we'll do is we'll go back onto the football in a second, but one thing you have been very vocal with regards to is the situation in your parents' home country of Iran and the human rights globally. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about this on a football podcast, but in 2022, there was an Iranian woman who was killed for showing a few bits of hair from her hijab. And I think this has been brewing for many years, that women have been the crackdown on women, especially, we get upset with the French when they tell Muslim women to take off their veils. We don't believe that any man should tell a woman how to dress either way. If you want to wear a veil, wear a veil. If you don't want to wear a veil, don't wear a veil. But to actually kill a woman because of her veil, that was a trigger point, and there was a massive uprising. And there's a kind of an anti-government feeling right now in Iran that's been going on for 45 years anyway. And because what they do when there's a crackdown, they shut the internet down. I felt that it was very important that myself as a well-known face was to, I suppose, support the people of Iran and use my social media, give it up to them and be a mouthpiece for them. And what's happening is that the few things that come out on the Telegram channels are in the Persian language, but it needs people who can understand the language and decipher it and then put it out for British journalists, not just to get stories, but to see what the truth is on the ground. So there was a podcast called the News Agents podcast with Emily Maitlis and John Sopel. They made me Person of the Year because of the service to British journalism, really, that they were all looking at my Twitter account to see what's going on, what the people of Iran are saying. And so that's something, it's an ongoing struggle. And you see this with dictatorships, but it's a massive women's struggle there. The women who are 50% of that country are being oppressed, and it's an absolute international disgrace that is going on, and women are still being killed and hanged, and they're actually hanged for protesting. So it's a terrible situation going on in the world. Obviously there's Gaza and there's all the stuff going on there, but I have to keep this going on in social media, not to forget the women of Iran, because it really is it's a massive struggle, and I think women around the world should be doing more to highlight their plight.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, let's go back on to the football, and of course, there's a lot of excitement around Ipswich Town, back-to-back promotions. Like we said, we mentioned League One, and I've worked it out that Kieran McKenna come in straight after that game against Barrow in the FA Cup, which you lost. Were you worried that you was going to be stuck in League One for such a long time more?
Well, I thought Ipswich was going to get relegated. I didn't think that there was such a bad feeling. In fact, even this season, they lost to Margate in the FA Cup, and that's probably the best thing that could have happened to them, because they didn't need any distractions. I mean, I know the hierarchy there. There's a guy called Mark Ashton. I even said, listen, do you want some social media content? He goes, mate, you're very kind, but we are so focused on the Premier League. We don't want anyone to be distracted. And I really like that. And when Ipswich lost to Barrow, I thought, well, that's it. They're going to. But actually, again, it's focus. And I think in this life, if you persevere and focus on one thing, which is why people always ask you to specialize. Like even doctors specialize. Some people become GPs, some people become knee specialists. Once you specialize, then you can do a lot of good. And I think Ipswich knew they belong in the Premier League, and they just focused on it. And I think that's probably the best thing that happened, losing to Barrow, and then last season losing to Margate in the FA Cup. These things are turning points in seasons, and I think that when everyone pulls together and there is a unity in the team, and some of the players that really came through for them was just fantastic. You know, I can't speak highly enough of them, because some of them just played. They just lifted up. I remember I'm not far from the ground, and there was a game Ipswich were playing against Southampton, and there was a last-minute winner scored. I swear to God, the house shook. I could hear the cheer. I was watching it. I heard what happens. You hear the cheer first before they score. The cheer, because of the delay on the TV, this massive cheer going. The house shook, and just shows you what it means. This city, you know, it's not this town. It's not even a city. So it was, and it's amazing to see Ipswich finished above Leeds and Southampton. I went to that first game, Ipswich 3, Leeds 4. I remember thinking, okay, well, Ipswich have got a long way to go, but Leeds are going to be promoted. I can't believe at the end of the season, Ipswich had automatic promotion. Leeds made the playoffs and they didn't make it. Leeds are still in League in the Championship. So it's amazing how focus and determination gets you places.
You were one of the favourites to be relegated last year, and the story is unbelievable of how Kieran McKenna. Do you think momentum is a big thing in football?
Yeah, it is. It really is. Positivity. That's why they always say if you're losing 1-0, and then when you score the equaliser, you go in hard because you got on the wave. That's what all of us, honestly. After Cole Palmer scored in the final against Spain, the whole of England anyway, just felt we've got this. Let's now go in with the second goal. That is and it didn't happen. And the disappointment when Spain scored, because it's positivity breeds more positivity, but you have to all be on board with it. And I think that's something that didn't happen in the Euro final, but it happened with Ipswich. You know, it happened. They were losing to Southampton, and then they equalised and they scored a winning goal. And this is what happens. In the next game you win. The next game you win. This positive mindset is absolutely everything in football. I know that, having played the game. You know, having played, you know, being 1-0 down, and then once you get, it's such a wind in your sails, and you all look at each other. Come on, lads, we got this. That's why you see players scream and shout at each other like, we can do this, go in for the kill kind of thing. So yeah, it is. And I think that as soon as they put together a little run, I think it was like 13, 14 games. It was quite a number of games they won on the trot. It just begets it. And I just knew once they any team who puts a run like that together, it happened with Chelsea, with Antonio Conte in 2016-17, they went 13 games on the bounce. And you just think they've got this, they're going to do it. And you can't lose. And if you see Novak Djokovic in the against Alcaraz in the Olympic final, if you see that final, I mean, Djokovic is absolutely playing the tennis of his life. He's so positive. It's a mindset. It's called being in the zone. And I think that's what sportsmen try and do, is to be in the zone. I've experienced it in swimming. I used to swim a lot. And I remember my trainer was saying, get in the zone, which is you swim and then you don't get tired anymore. You're going at full pelt, but you're in the zone. So the brain forgets to fatigue the body. And that's called being in the zone. And I think that's what you're trying to aim for. And McKenna knew that from his Manchester United days, about being in the zone. When you're in the zone, then nothing can stop you. And I love that. And it's a really good analogy for life. Once you're in the zone and you're focused and you're sharp and you're, you know, not distracted by anything, when you're in the zone, that's when things happen.
And he's made some true signings as well on the journey there. Of course, Kiefer Moore is no longer at Ipswich. He was on loan, but also a former Cherry. He was on loan here in Leif Davis.
Leif
And
Davis, brilliant
yeah,
player. My God. Is he back at Bournemouth or he stayed at Ipswich?
no, he's at Ipswich. He's staying at Ipswich. Of course, he was just on loan here from Leeds, and then you signed him permanently. So, he's
They also did very well with Omari Hutchinson as well. That was a Chelsea player.
yes.
And I remember seeing there was a reserve game. Amazing. I mean, this guy's amazing. And he always played him on the bench. And it's really interesting. The psychology of these players, these people is unbelievable. When you got a really brilliant winger, what you do at football clubs is you don't play him for the first few games. So you wind him up. You only bring him on they bring him on with 5 minutes to go, and he was like, "This guy's brilliant. Why aren't you playing him?" I remember shouting it. I remember shouting at McKenna, Omari. I said, Kieran. I was going, Kieran, Omari. And all the Ipswich fans get on him in the early part of the season, and they wouldn't play him. They wouldn't play him because it's about psychologically winding up the player. And look what happens. He comes in, starts banging in goals. And they bought him from Chelsea, 25 million. And it's a snip. He's going to be some player. He's going to set the... Watch out for him in the Premier League and watch out for his name, Omari Hutchinson. And I hope they don't do that. I hope they play him from the very beginning. But they do that with wingers. Every winger and all the wingers I've mentioned right now, even Pat Nevin at Chelsea, same thing happened with him. They didn't play him. And he's getting so pissed off. And you think, I'm going to show you, because they're all like young, 20, 21. And you've got to get them to think, I'm going to bloody show you. You're telling me not to play. I'm better than everyone else here. I'm better than everyone else in the team. You're on the bench. Would you piss off? That's what you do. You wind up your wingers and then you bring them on at the right time. So watch out for the name, Omari Hutchinson.
I honestly think you will survive in the Premier League next season. And the reason being is that momentum from League One, from playing an FA Cup tie against Bracknell Town to visiting Old Trafford, the Emirates, Etihad, and of course Dean Court as well. The highlight of the calendar. How confident are you, Omid, as an Ipswich fan, that you can stay there?
I think that they will stay up and they'll do quite well. I don't think there'll be a relegation battle. I think Kieran McKenna will get it in. Kieran McKenna will be telling them to win the league. I think that's what it is. They say he'll be telling those players, you can win the league, and so they'll probably end up 12th. I think that's the way it works. They'll probably end up mid-table, but they'll get a couple of results along the way. I think they play good football. That's the thing. They do play good football. And actually at Portman Road, there's like you can fit 29, 30,000 people there. And that's when that place is rocking. It's a very difficult place to come to. I'll tell you that much. I've been there a number of times. And when that crowd gets going, it's very intimidating for the away team. So I don't know. I'd like to make a prediction now that a few... Do you remember there was a time when Burnley came up and they were like beating Manchester United? And it's a similar kind of thing with Ipswich. I think they will pick off a few teams at home. They might struggle away, but they've got all the equipment to do really, really well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Fingers crossed for you, and I'd love to see you succeed. Of course, you are in the middle of your tour at the moment, Namaste, and of course you're heading around the globe. What is coming up next? What's on the agenda after the tour?
Well, interestingly enough, now that I'm talking to you, there was actually literally yesterday I saw someone said, "You got your UK tour? No Bournemouth. Get stuffed." And I usually play Bournemouth. I'm at the Pavilion, and I actually thought, "Am I not?" And I looked. I'm not in Bournemouth. So, in a sense, this has been a totally pointless podcast. I'm not reaching out to the people of Bournemouth at all. But it's been a pleasure to talk to you. But yes, it's a show that's been, again, I'm in a similar position to how it was in 9/11. The world has really gone to pot. And again, it's Omid Djalili going back on the road to try and make sense of things through the medium of comedy. And I'll be going to New Zealand, Australia, America first. Then I start my UK tour from the middle of October. All the information is on my website, omiddjalili.net. Come along. It's going to be a great night. And I've also got one of the best support acts in the whole world, Booth B. Graffo, who's a comedian's comedian. So if you don't like me, you'll enjoy him anyway. Often people say, "Didn't like you, I liked your warm-up act." So if you don't like me, at least you'll have a good night. But I think that it's something that I've already tried. I was in Canada, and the show went extremely well there. So I'm looking forward to developing it further and hit UK when it's really nice and ripe and ready.
Excellent stuff. Are you saying that we have to venture to Southampton, just down the M27, to come and see you?
I hope not. I hope there's somewhere. I think I'm doing Chichester. I'm doing a couple of nights in Chichester. Let's check it out now. Am I not doing? Hang on, I'm not doing a book of Lichfield, Colchester, Maidstone, Northern, Worcester, Farnham, Ipswich region on the 17th of January, Taunton, Radlett, Bridgewater, Chatham, Newbury, Lincoln, Dudley, Stratford, Leeds, Southampton, Mayflower, 27th. Oh God, I'm so sorry. How far is Wimborne?
Wimborne. Oh, that's just down the road. I shall see you there.
Yeah, come to Wimborne. Yeah, Wimborne will be on the 1st of March, 2025. Yeah, Wimborne, or if not, Southampton on the 27th of February at the Mayflower. So yeah, sorry, Bournemouth guys, you're going to have to come to other venues to come and see me. But temporary malfunction of my biorhythms, I would say. That's the only way I can explain the complete neglect of Bournemouth on this tour. But thanks, man. Great talking to you, man. I'm really thankful this podcast that you're welcoming Ipswich back into the fold, and I think it's where they're meant to be. And like I said, there used to be a big Division 1 heavyweight, but they were there before they were there in the Premier League for a little while, but then they got relegated in 2000. So it's a huge return after 24 years for the town of Ipswich, and I think it's and you can see the town's buzzing. I love this place. I moved here in November 2020. No thoughts of moving. It's a great place to be, and of course, you need a great team in the Premier League to really get the town rocking. And I think we're gonna, and I really hope that people can come here and hang out in Ipswich. There's lots of great pubs and clubs here, so when people come, hang around before you leave. It's a great place.
Definitely, and it's a delight to have you back. And Omid Djalili, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on this show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Great talking to you, Greg. Cheers.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. Remember, hit the like, the subscribe and the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. Do check out our other interviews. We've had Tiff Nadell, of course, a former Top Gear star. We've had Tom Meehan, of course, formerly of Kasabian. We've had Richie Neville, formerly of Five. Also, we've had the likes of Damon Minchella, Ocean Colour Scene, Richard Archer, Hard-Fi. We've had Gaz Whelan, The Happy Mondays, Adam Devlin, The Blue Tones, and of course, Harry's been on recently as well with his Premier League predictions, so go check those out as well. So until the next one, up the Cherries, hopefully, fingers crossed, a great season for the Tractor Boys as well, and thank you for joining us.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.